You know, the scariest words in any horror movie aren't something a ghost whispers. They're the words, based on a true story. That little phrase, it just sends a chill down your spine, right? It means the evil you're seeing on screen isn't just fiction. It happened. And no movie franchise has used that hook better than The Conjuring. So let's pull back the curtain on the real-life terror that started it all.
That's a quote from a man named Jack Smurl. He and his family found themselves living inside a nightmare they thought was only possible on the big screen. His words perfectly captured that terrifying moment, when the line between what's real and what's a horror movie completely disappears. At the very heart of the entire Conjuring universe, you'll find not one, but two real families. Both claimed they were being attacked by forces that just couldn't explain. They lived in different states, but their stories of terror would end up becoming two of the most famous paranormal cases in American history. So, on one side, you've got the Perron family in Rhode Island. Their ordeal lasted for nearly a decade and became the inspiration for the very first Conjuring film. And on the other side, there's the Smurl family in Pennsylvania. Their incredibly violent haunting was the basis for the franchise's final chapter. Two different families, two different houses, but the same waking nightmare. For the Perron family, the horror kind of crept in slowly. Carolyn Perron would find the broom had moved on its own, or she'd hear scraping sounds coming from the kitchen when nobody was in there. But these little things, they started to grow. The kids began seeing spirits. Some were harmless, but others were angry. Beds would literally lift off the floor. The family became convinced that a spirit named Bathsheba, who believed she was the true lady of the house, was the one tormenting them. The Smurl family's experience? Oh, that was a whole different story. There was nothing subtle about it. It began with disgusting smells like sulfur and then escalated into pure violence. Their dog was thrown against the wall. Their daughters were pushed down the stairs. A heavy light fixture came crashing down from the ceiling. Both Jack and Janet Smurl even claimed they were physically and sexually assaulted by some kind of unseen, demonic entity.
So when praying didn't work and the terror just kept getting worse, both families got desperate. They turned to the most famous paranormal investigators in America, Ed and Lorraine Warren. These were the people you called when you truly believed the devil himself was knocking at your door.
So who were they? Well, Ed was a demonologist. He was a former cop who basically dedicated his life to studying evil. His wife, Lorraine, was a clairvoyant. She claimed she could actually see and talk to the spirits that Ed was hunting. Together, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research and took on some huge cases, like the Amityville haunting, which really made them legends in the paranormal world.
And this was the real challenge the Warrens faced, right? I mean, it's one thing to document weird stuff happening, but how do you actually fight it? What was their plan for battling something demonic? For the Warrens, the answer was knowledge. To them, you couldn't just go in swinging. You had to identify your enemy first to understand it. And the intelligence they used came from some of the oldest, most forbidden books ever written, ancient textbooks of magic, known as grimoires. Now, it's really important to understand that a grimoire isn't just a fantasy spell book. Think of it more like a technical manual for the supernatural. For investigators like the Warrens, these books were like a field guide to demons, containing descriptions, names, and even supposed instructions on how to summon or, more importantly, get rid of these things. And this knowledge is ancient. Seriously, we're not talking about something from a Hollywood prop department. This tradition goes back thousands of years to clay tablets in Mesopotamia. Then, during the medieval period, even as the church was officially condemning them, these books were being secretly copied and studied by priests. Then the printing press came along, and this forbidden knowledge just exploded across Europe. It got to the point where, by the 19th century, you could literally walk into a bookstore in Paris and buy a manual on how to summon a demon. And to give these texts even more weight and make them seem super legitimate, the authors would often claim they were written by major biblical figures. You'd see titles like The Key of Solomon or The Sixth and Seventh Books of Moses. The idea was to make it seem like you were reading the secret knowledge of prophets and kings, giving the books this almost holy authority. Okay, so the Warrens show up, armed with all this ancient knowledge. Case closed, right? Well, not exactly. Turns out, even with the world's most famous demonologists on the job, the mystery and the skepticism was far from over. And this is where the story gets really complicated. The Smurl case was met with a ton of skepticism. While the family and the Warrens swore they were dealing with a violent supernatural entity, a lot of rational explanations popped up. Doctors pointed out that Jock Smurl had recently had brain surgery, which could have caused hallucinations. Other paranormal investigators came to the house and found absolutely nothing. And maybe the biggest blow, the official investigation by the Catholic diocese found no evidence of any demonic activity. And when the family finally moved, the strange events stopped completely.
The Perron case didn't have a clean, happy ending either. There was no big, triumphant exorcism like in the movies. Actually, it was the opposite. After a seance went horribly wrong and Carolyn Perron was allegedly possessed, her husband Roger literally kicked the Warrens out of the house. He was terrified for his wife's sanity. The family just lived with it for years until they could finally afford to move out in 1980. They didn't beat it, they just ran away.
So all of this leaves us with a really unsettling question. Are these stories just tall tales, maybe fueled by stress and a lot of media attention? Or do these ancient books, these grimoires, actually contain real knowledge about a world that's hidden just out of our sight? Are they just interesting historical artifacts, or are they operating manuals for forces we've forgotten how to control?